Hello, people out there in internet lands. Welcome to the Land Down Under Hangout. And tonight we are doing a mini read, which was picked by popular vote in the group. And we are reading Psalm for the Wild Built, which is written by Becky Chambers and is her latest release. Yay, Becky Chambers. All right, so let's get started. What do you think, Kim?
Absolutely loved it. I was really sad that I had to leave the world so soon and the characters. That would be my only down point of it, that it was too short for me. I wanted more, as you always do. Yeah. With Becky Chambers, I always feel like I want more. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it. And even though it ended before I wanted it to, I think it did end well. She chose a good spot to end it without me feeling, oh, sad Liz leaving, but I think she summed the book up well. Beautiful. And ended a nice point. Yep.
David?
Yeah, so I didn't actually know it was a mini read. I was like, oh my God, new Becky Chambers book. And like, so it ended really suddenly, but yeah, it was pretty complete. I really just love her books where like she can make characters innocent without making them naive. And people don't have to screw everyone else over, or at least not in the, present in this particular case. But yeah, I found it really relaxing compared to a lot of the stuff I read. It's like still makes you think, but without actually feeling like against a background of conflict. Well, not external person-to-person conflict. Yeah, and seeing character growth even in such a short novel is actually pretty cool. That's great. I liked it.
Yeah, I really liked this a lot. Although it's not my favorite Becky Chambers book, it's probably my least favorite Becky Chambers book, actually.
Even over the other novella?
The other novella is probably my favorite.
Wow.
Because I love stories that have bad shit happening and where terrible things happen. I find them much more interesting. That said, I still really loved this. It was really good. I read it very quickly. Again, I was a bit like, oh, that's finishing a bit sooner than I thought it was going to. But I do know that this is book 1, and there is at least a book 2 coming, so that's good. But it was a little bit different to the other stuff she's written, and I liked it. It's Becky Chambers, so I'm gonna read them all anyway. So I don't want to. I'm not trying to be like controversial opinion or anything. It's just it's my least favorite, while it's still up on the pedestal of like Becky Chambers land.
Elizabeth.
This could be my favorite Becky Chambers novella. I don't know. I will still have to think about it, but I think it is a strong contender. Really, really loved it. Obviously, T-Monk, right up my alley. Yep, definitely here for it.
Awesome. Sarah?
Yes, I really enjoyed it. It was after my pick, which at least we had a lot of good bitchy conversation about, which was around about was supposed to be the same length. This one flew. Such a pleasure to read. I cried several times. Just the world building. I mean, Becky Chambers' world building is just, you're in there, you're feeling the vibes, you're sensing the senses. Just great. I was really, really compelled by the drive to go to the Hermitage, and the only thing was I was disappointed that Dex didn't listen to see if there were crickets. So that was the only thing. I would thought that would be sort of the piece that would kind of put a pin in the end of it. Maybe it'll be at the end of the trilogy, Dex will finally find crickets. I don't know, but I was kind of...
I thought the last line said something about crickets.
Did it? I didn't think so. I thought, I was like, did they get the crickets? But yeah. But no, I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite.
Does. Literally last bit.
What does
Crickets
it say?
began
Read
to
it
sing.
to me.
Crickets began to sing.
How did I miss that? Maybe I was just, too overwhelmed by the story. Okay, I'll have to have a look at my Kindle. Well, maybe it got cut. Anyway, take it back. There are crickets. Yay!
I agree with you though, Sarah, because I thought that would be a bigger thing. I was waiting for Dex to say to Moscap, one of the things, like say that they wanted to go and hear crickets and have Moscap go, but I love crickets. Like I was waiting for this because Moscap, as soon as Moscap mentioned that it liked insects, I was like, oh, this is going to be the link with the crickets. And then there wasn't a conversation between the two about crickets, which I was
just wonderfully enthusiastic about everything. Which is awesome. Everything, which is great. Anyway, that's me. We'll get into it soon.
Sorry.
Just to finish off, your thoughts?
I really loved it. I've loved every Becky Chambers book. I don't know if it is my favorite, but it's definitely up there. I haven't read the Wayfarers ones for a while, so it could partly just be that it's fresh in my mind, but I just really loved it. I did the audiobook not by choice, because I normally don't like to do audiobooks for something this short, but I couldn't get a physical copy in time, so I just got the audio because I do want to buy a physical copy. I didn't want to buy an ebook because Matt had already bought an ebook version, and
we're giving Becky more money.
I definitely no, because I know I want to own this, and so at least now I've got an excuse to go and read it again, because I can read it in paper form and see how it compares. The narrator was really good. I really liked the way they spoke for Moscap in particular. Really kind of a very calming listen, and I identified with it a lot. So we can get into more of that later, but I loved it.
Beautiful. Naomi?
I feel like I'm in the same boat as Matt. It's probably my least favorite Becky Chambers book. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I don't love it as much as I do her series. Like I really loved that series, and I just.
Yep. Doesn't make it bad. It's not necessarily as good as that series. Got it.
Yeah, it's not bad. I enjoyed it. It's just not. I didn't love it as much as the other series. So.
Is Karina coming back? Okay. Well, for me, it was fabulous. I gave it 6 out of 5 stars. It hit all of my buttons of, oh God, I love this so much. And I don't know that I can say I liked it more than some of the other books, but it's more along the lines of it fits into the same sort of category of, oh my God, this just makes me so happy and so calm to read, and oh my gosh, I love this so much, sort of thing. So I'd probably put it on par with Long Way to Small Angry Planet and the most recent one, Ground Within, something rather than Ground Within.
Galaxy and Ground Within.
Thank you, because those two I kind of put on par with each other, and probably only Long Way was up above it because of nostalgia of it being the first. So this one's probably on par with Galaxy and the Ground Within, which was excellent. Apologies for those people who struggled to get the book. I was unaware that this had at the time when we scheduled all of this, that there was a separate release time in Australia to well, apparently the rest of the world. Yeah, I know some people got it fine and some people didn't, but yeah, it made difficulties essentially, but apparently we got around it, so that's cool. All right, so what do we want to talk about first? There was a couple of points that were raised that people wanted to talk about later.
Well, I'm just going to add on to Kirsten's that the audiobook, the narrator's voice was just beautiful, and it was so calming to listen to. She did a really good job. I found some weirdness in the audiobook where it sounded like she'd stopped and started again, and her voice changed a touch. Either that or it was re-recorded, but then her voice would flow on. So I think there must have been some breaks, and then she started would start again, and her voice would be just a slightly bit different when she started up again, and it would weird me out for a second. And but otherwise, like, her voice was still like just gorgeous throughout it. It's just so calming. And if I was, because I was usually like walking to work or walking home from work or like cooking or something, if I got distracted, I had to rewind. I couldn't miss a second of this book. If something distracted me and I didn't hear it, or my headset every now and then would make it like disconnects a little bit, I had to rewind it every time so I could hear every single word.
I think one of the things I really like is that it is so short, so I can see myself picking it up so easily just when I'm just in a frantic mode and I just need something to be calm. And just because I read this in one evening, but it was during the 24-hour readathon, so that's why. So it's not like I was pushing deliberately. But yeah, I can see myself picking it up for that. Becky Chambers is that kind of author for me in the first place, but because it's short, I can see myself doing this so much more likely.
Yeah, I listened to it in like 3 days, and the only times I really stopped is because I had to go to work.
Damn it.
Or I just had to
do all
stop,
that
or I had to
work?
go to bed, or I had to do something important that I couldn't put off, and I stopped it. That's the only reason it took me 3 sessions really to listen to, rather than just sitting down listening to it all at once. And I'd listen to it on 1 speed. I didn't turn the speed up at all. And I always turn the speed up on audiobooks.
I think I had it on 1.25 because that's what mine defaults to, because I always have it on that speed.
Yeah.
But I probably didn't need it to be. But it was interesting because I listened to it on the way to and from work, and I felt like when I'd finished it, I was so like almost like bereft. Like, this was so good to listen to on the way to and from work, because it really just put me in that calm headspace. And especially on the way home when I was like wound up, it was like, oh, like so nice. So yeah, really good.
So what we're saying is more stories like this, please, except for only Becky Chambers seems to write stories like these.
Yeah.
I think I could more empathize rather than seeing it coming. I mean, being so frustrated that like I wanted to do this thing and I'm really bad at it, so I'm just going to sit down for months and learn how to do this from scratch. Or even this, now that I've done this, it's not actually what I wanted. I'm just going to climb that mountain over there and like fight through everything just because I must. Not because there's a particularly good reason, just because I don't want to give up. I think I've had more empathy than anything else. The underlying tension that they had was just, kind of resonated. You know, they were really good at helping other people, but never thought that maybe that's what they needed themselves, was just to talk to someone and listen.
Yeah, I really empathize with that whole thing too. I was like, I could see it myself a lot in Dex.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really easy for a lot of us to sort of see, like, they were searching for purpose and searching for, you know, what are they supposed to do and things. And I think a lot of us sort of feel that at some point in time, because when we're feeling dissatisfied with what we're doing, it really can be very hard, and thinking, oh, maybe I should be doing something else. But then it's so much effort to go and change and do that. This person did do the effort and change. But I think that lack of feeling okay in what they're doing is something that so many of us feel.
And that whole thing of what you do as a job is so tied to your identity. And it's like, if I'm not, especially like I've only really done this job that I'm in, apart from part-time jobs when I was at university and stuff. So it's hard to pull who I am out of what my job is. And then that whole thing really resonated with me.
Shall we talk about the robots and their choices? I thought that was very fascinating. Oh yeah,
I like the choice of going, I can be bait.
Like the way they just sort of like, they got their own consciousness, and so they were given a choice of what they wanted to do, and so they just decided to leave. And it was just such a different idea to have them do that sort of thing.
Yeah, like every robot story is like they have an uprising and want to take over, you know, get rid of all the humans. And they were just like, no, we just want to go into the forest. And
it reminded me of, can you guys hear me? Have I unmuted?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. It reminded me of the movie Her, which we talked about, and the AIs at the end realizing they wanted more than to be servants of humans. And, you know, and I think that's such an interesting thing to think about. Like, what if you do gain intelligence and consciousness, what does it mean? Like, even, you know, thinking about children or animals, you know, they want to leave the nest, as it were, or they want to do things on their own. No, I can do it, kind of thing. So, and what I thought was really interesting was there wasn't really the conflict with the human beings of going, oh, but this is what we, you know, we built you for, and you can't just leave, and we want to enslave you. And I thought that was interesting, of where that it was refreshing. I'm not sure that would be what actually happened, given what's currently going on in the world. I feel there'll be a lot of human beings going, no, this is what you're supposed to do because we have determined it, you know, that kind of God question.
Do you think that's perhaps why she set it in a different world and not in our world, because we wouldn't have believed that?
Yeah, what I loved was the repercussions that came out of that, which was this whole having to, and I know we'll get back to the robots, but that the humans of this world of Panga actually having to go, well, we're not just going to build more, try and keep solving the problem this way. We need to actually completely rethink how we do things, to the point that Dex did not want Moscap's help, was actually like, felt like that was imposing on, like, going, oh, well, that if I do that, then I'm turning you into a slave. And I thought that was one of the most interesting conversations, was Moscap going, no, I'm offering, and you refusing is actually refusing me making a choice. And I was like, oh, that's so good, that's so interesting. So I really liked that conversation between the two of them.
I feel like Becky Chambers does what she does so well here, and that instead of making it aliens, it's robots, and that they are not what you expect. They are different. They are definitely different, but they are different in ways that are not like stereotypical. They are different in they kind of face some of those stereotypes and say, no, you haven't thought about this. This is how it could be.
I think she does that in so many ways in this too, like with the robots, but there's also like a lot of the gender stuff that's going on in it as well, is very thoughtful. So yeah, she's sort of exploring a lot of those sorts of things and building a world to sort of say exactly that. This is how it could be, and we could think this way.
Sorry, guys, I've got to get going. Love this conversation, though.
Bye.
Bye, David.
See, there was a line in there that Dex said as well. It's like something along the lines of, like, you know, this is the world that we live in now, which is a lot different to the world pre-robots. And it's better, but it's also still not perfect. Like, we've still got issues and shit that's going on, but it's at a different level. Like, it's still optimistic, but it's also still the human condition of, we're not perfect and there's always going to be problems, but it was just different problems, and maybe not as bigger problems as humans in our world are facing in our civilization right now.
Yeah, and saying that.
Sorry.
I was going to say, in saying that, though, in the humans, like, we have different problems, but some of the problems we had in the past are a lot better. Like in the first world, child mortality isn't the issue it was. You know, we have an ability to understand what viruses are and how they replicate. Like, we're dealing with it in different ways or whatnot. So yeah, I think it's this evolution of what problems are. To you, yeah. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but I like that kind of I still thought Panga seemed better than our world.
I think
so
she
ways.
concentrated a lot environmentally. She concentrated a lot on not pointing it out, but how ecologically they were oil based and everything like that. And as soon as the robots said gained sentience quite suddenly as well, they pretty much went from, you know, being machines that automated making cars to something that suddenly became sentient. So it was quite a shock, I guess, to humans. So they just turned around and went, okay, let's get away from oil, let's get away from this, we're wrecking the environment. All of a sudden they turned it around quite fast, and they didn't seem to question it too much.
I think it was
our world. I like their world a lot more than
yeah, our world digs its claws in too much.
Yeah.
But I think it was that they gave so much space to the robots, like, you guys can be over there and we're going to be over here. So they're like, well, we've got this finite space, so we better use it wisely, you know. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if everyone could realize that our space is finite too, and that we should be using it wisely.
It's also a genre convention though, because this is solar punk.
I didn't know that was a thing, but I really like it if it is.
Yeah, so some of the defining characteristics of solar punk are like a more utopian society that is ecologically sustainable, and also more upbeat stories.
Well, I need to.
So I mean, this book
find
fits
more
very
books.
squarely in that subgenre.
Interesting. Yeah, I highlighted this passage that sort of I thought was really. Moscap says this, and Moscap nodded slowly. So the paradox is that the ecosystem as a whole needs its participants to act with restraint in order to avoid collapse. But the participants themselves have no inbuilt mechanism to encourage such behavior other than fear. And I thought it was like this, for me, that was kind of like this epiphany when they were talking about that. I was like, oh yeah. Like, Jesus, that's really sad in some ways of the human condition, that and species in general, that's how
it's life. Yeah,
but it is like that's what they're talking about. And I thought that was such an interesting thing, is that they were, Panga as a society was faced with this thing of going, the fear is now there is something else. I don't know, maybe that was the fear, something else now as intelligent as us, quite powerful, that have just got up and left, and because maybe they were fearful to try and stop that, who knows. And if they continue to fuck with stuff, maybe it was the case of, well, we don't know what that is. I just thought it was really a really interesting take on
So
Sarah, your mic just kicked killed
out.
Died. That's the word I was looking for. All right. Yeah, keep going while she fixes it. Got it.
When you were talking about the choices of the robots, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the other choice that they made, which was not to be immortal, like to like rebuild themselves, and that whole thing of, well, that's what everything in nature does. Nothing lives forever, and we didn't want to live forever either. But I thought that was an interesting choice.
I thought that, yeah, it was obviously a commentary sort of thing, and I was like, thank God, because honestly, the whole concept of living forever is just like, oh, why would?
Yeah, I would.
That's why we hated Icefall so much.
That's why I had a problem with the Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy as well.
It's like, because to me, and I was actually I was reminiscing, thinking about this, because I sort of started this book and I was thinking about, why is Becky Chambers so good at certain, like, world building and setting these type of societal questions in it, and like why Icefall kind of fell apart. But it's this thing of, I could imagine more stories being set in this world, as you did with the Wayfarers novels. You know, you're kind of like, this is how these parts of the world work, and we're going to explore that. We're not just going to stay with one character, because characters will always evolve and change. And the story is about the society. And what's so interesting with Moscap and Dex is that you're learning about the societies and the history through them, which is so clever. You know, they didn't see the beginning, they won't see the end, but you're learning about what they think about the future and what they know about the past. I love that idea of remnants that Moscap had, the memories of the ancestors. I loved that. I
But
thought that
also how it applies to humans as well. Like that was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about what makes Becky so good, though, I think Becky Chambers is amazing because she tells incredibly human stories without feeling like the need to chuck like really weird conflicts. I don't want to say weird, weird's the wrong word for it. We read stories like that all the time and we enjoy them and there's nothing wrong with them. But I love the fact that her conflicts are very built into very human, normal, everyday kinds of things. This one was an I can't say it today.
Existential crisis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
About, what I want to do with my life. And Moss Caps was just curiosity about humans. Let's go see what they're doing. Such a basic sort of thing. And I love that about them, and it makes them interesting. But then she puts on a positive twist, which just makes me very happy. But
and even the smaller interactions that Dex had early on with the people that were coming to talk to them about, their problems with the tea monk thing. It was the same kind of thing, like the problems they were coming to them with, that first story when Dex was not knowing what they were doing was really, and that she was like, my cat died and it was the only thing that really was holding my marriage together. And it was like when we were talking about the society's not perfect, it's like all of those human things that doesn't matter that you've solved the climate change issues and stuff. There's still issues because people are people, and things are going to come up between people. And then the other lady that was like overwhelmed because I didn't really understand what her job was, something about pests or something. What do you guys remember what that one was? And she was like, it was some kind of pest that was. And
she was like a pest control person, and they were resisting the treatment that they'd used in the past. Now she's like,
yeah. And then the dad with the twins, I was like, so I loved when Dex was just like, here, take some tea with you, you're gonna need it.
I was just like, damn, you fine.
And in the end, it's just basically about people, like humans being humans, but also just generally a positive way of interacting. Like, they need seeking help, they're getting help, and they're actually, there was no thinking, this awful person, and this person can't handle their kids, or those sorts of things. It was just how can I help you? What can I do for you?
I was thinking this is the thing our world needs. It's like it's like a casual drop-in therapist that just listens to you and gives you tea.
You know what it kind of reminded me of as well? I think the one where Dex was talking to the pest control lady, that town where they all just went off later and they're all just sitting in an area having a cup of tea. It was like a community center.
Yeah.
Well, it's like some kind of community center, like community center, a church, a library, that sort of thing, where everyone just went to, get things off their chest and then just sit down and have a cup of tea and a little break and a chat. It was like having a community center.
And just in the life that Dex was living, there's the side that you kind of read at the beginning. It's so romantic, right? This beautiful caravan, essentially, that I was imagining was beautifully painted. I think there was, I suppose she spoke to that, but I was imagining like a beautiful caravan and like, very gypsy style. And I was like, there's a big bike. And I was like, this is, like it speaks to that. But what was great is that it's also like, you can romanticize that, but here's all the things as well. Like I get hot and sweaty, and I
don't have enough space for all my things and
crap. And it's still not, and I think we spoke to at the beginning, that thing of Dex going, I've already changed once, I can't change again. And it's like, who says, I think that's one of the things. It's like, who says that you can't do something different? Or it's scary to not know what that is. And I don't know how one in that world explores. I don't know what I want to do. Because in some ways they're already doing what most people do when they go, I don't know, which is go traveling, right?
A gap year.
You're already traveling. So
But I did very much like how Dex didn't really know what they wanted to do, and they failed, and so they made the tea monk job their own. Rather than just doing what everyone else did, they brought the things they loved together and made it their own while still doing that same job. That was a really beautiful part of the story that I liked as well. And making,
I
making
particularly liked that when Dex first went out there to give it a try, they didn't do well straight away.
Totally failed.
Totally failed. Just total, like, and that kind of blind faith that it was all going to work beforehand, and then just that dawning realization that, oh my God, this is not something I know how to do. And I was like, yes, that's me.
Very relatable for sure.
Yeah. Going, should I give up or should I keep trying? And like, I could just go and stay with my family for the night, but can I face it if I go there? Am I going to give up? And then it ultimately turning the other path and trying. Yeah.
But I did have some thoughts about this. Like, I'm not sure whether it's like just my weird perspective, but I found it was a very Zen Buddhist book in some respects, and it also intersected with some reading about like Native American perspectives on humans' relationship with the world, and those two things intersected in a way that they haven't for me before, and that was when Moscat was talking about you on an individual level, like Dex is like experiencing what the Zen Buddhists would consider as suffering, like even though everything is good, like theoretically, and they have people that love them and they have a job that they're good at, they're still not happy. And that would be kind of the Zen Buddhist conception of suffering. And Moscat points out that, you know, you're looking for a purpose, you want to feel special, and that is like not necessarily the best way to look at it, sort of thing. And then Moscat applies that to like a bigger picture that humanity as a whole is doing the same thing. Like they're not kind of engaging in like more of the indigenous perspectives about humanity being in relationship with everything else. Like on the surface, they've done all right. Like they've become more ecologically sustainable and that sort of thing, but they haven't really internalized that lesson, and that is also leading to suffering.
I thought that was its real strong point, was that messaging at the end, when they found the monastery and everything. I was just like, yeah, everything here, yes.
So I really enjoyed that, for me, especially because there are two things that are kind of interest to me separately, and then to have them brought together in this book is just like, wow.
Amazing.
And also, sorry, just to keep going a little bit longer, it also had me thinking about that relates to what we were saying earlier about the robot's decision not to pursue immortality. It's like one of the like important things about Buddhism is accepting impermanence, and that is what the robots are doing.
There was actually a quote, if I can, I highlighted it, because, you know, my favorite Becky Chambers book is and of course I can never recall names right when I want to, but
Close and Common Orbit?
No, Record of a Spaceborne for You is my favorite book by Becky Chambers. And I read this and I was just like, Becky Chambers, she's always getting this stuff in. It's pretty here, Dex said. I wouldn't have imagined I'd say that about a place like this. This is the Hermitage that's kind of fallen into ruin. But yes, it is, Moscat said, as if making a decision within itself. It is. Dying things often are. So, one, I totally agree, because she's one of the people who got me on that kind of death positivity kind of thing. But like that thing that you're saying about impermanence in Zen Buddhism, I'm going to explore a bit further, Elizabeth. Like to see, like I really like that, because it's I think it's something that human beings are always like, not all, but there's always this thing of the legacy, right? What's my legacy? What do I leave? What is the thing that I'm doing so that when I've gone, my life had purpose, or that something I've created will go on? And it's like, well, yeah, what is that? And I always like that thing in Ring of the Spaceborne Few, which is, you know, based on the recompose technology, which isn't really technology at all, which is your legacy is that you will give back to the earth as it gave to you. And I always, I love that. So I want to explore that further. So thank you for that, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. I certainly can't claim expertise on it. I am not actually the Zen Buddhist of the household, but you know,
I suspected it wasn't that it might have come from Ian.
Osmosis. I thought maybe it was osmosisly, you know, coming to you.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I was very amused. Ian actually read the book before I did. He's a big Becky Chambers fan. And he did not at all pick up on any of the Zen Buddhist stuff. I'm like, it's right there.
I wanted to ask if you were getting some of the Indigenous stuff because you read that braided grass
Sweet
book.
Grass, yeah.
That.
By Robin Wall Kimmerer was the author, and I read that in the last few months, and that was definitely playing a lot in my thoughts while I was reading this book, especially the later sections.
That's what I was thinking. All right.
I highly recommend reading if you're at all interested in ecology and humanity's relationship to the rest of the world.
I want to. I'm just scared that I won't. That I'll get it and then not read it.
There was a chapter called The Summer Bear before the Hermitage. I honestly thought they were going to get attacked by a bear.
No.
They were in the cave, right?
Yeah.
There could be something else in that cave.
And they did keep talking about, like, there was a dead carcass of something in the cave, and I was like, well, what was eating it?
I was like, here we go. We're going into the action's coming. Takes.
Funny thing is that I think, like, when we read when Long Way to Small Angry Planet came out, a lot of people complained that there wasn't enough action. It was just this small bit, not from this group necessarily, I'm just mean like generally on the internet and stuff, complained about the fact that the action that's there, it may as well not have been there. It was very small and not really that much and things on those lines. I think despite all of that criticism, she's leaned in the opposite direction, and every book's gotten less and less action, in my opinion.
And I've realized I don't need it.
No.
If I'm enjoying the characters, I don't need the action. And I do enjoy books with action. Like, I've read books that are very like I used to read a lot of Matthew Riley, and his books are just like nothing but action. There's not even a breath taken.
Yeah, we love
And
Becky Chambers, we love Martha Wells, and they're definitely
but I just really, really, if I love the characters, I don't need that action, you know.
I think it's like, it's spice of life, right? Nobody wants to live their entire life doing calm things. You like to do other things as well, but there is something just so lovely about a beautiful, like, interaction and reflective story like this, as opposed to needing it.
The story itself says that, so find the strength to do both.
Yeah.
That was really good.
I like that bit at the end, actually.
What, the crickets, Sarah?
I read the crickets. I might have been crying at the end. Maybe that's why I missed it.
That might be it.
Definitely.
Where is it?
It was just blurry.
The Summer Bear, because it's called The Summer Bear. I just thought there would be a bear. Like, I thought that maybe, you know, Dex might see a real bear for the first time, and I just thought there might be a real bear.
They did see a real bear. From when early on, when they're traveling in the caravan.
When they first met.
Where they first met, yeah. And Moscap was, I can't remember exactly, but he was like, ooh, shh, quiet. And then there was, it came out of the thing, and Dex was standing there at the caravan door freaking out.
I'm sure it ate Dex's dinner.
Yeah.
No, I do remember that. I thought there might be another, like, interaction like that, or something along along those lines. Oh, something, maybe you can speak to this, Elizabeth. I really loved, because I got this deeply, how Dex didn't like sitting there eating in front of Moscap and was like,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
oh, something, just sit there with it. And then, just
Oh,
And
that
be like,
cracked me
are you
up,
going to
Ollie.
eat
Yeah, I
that?
get that.
Moscap's like,
no.
I mean, it's dealing with a remnant, isn't it?
Yeah.
and it's one of those things like, so many things in this story, even though it's set on another planet and most of it's so, different to our world, but there's these little moments that you're like, I've been there. Like the bit where Dex is having the shower and then they went for the towel and like, oh shit, the towel's not here. And I'm like, I've been there.
Yep.
It's just, it's so relatable.
Look, even the dedication. I read the dedication and be like, oh, yeah. I immediately started to smile. And the dedication is for anyone who could use a break.
Oh, yes, I remember reading that. Yes.
I think I started crying when I read that. There, obviously maybe some hormonal reasons as well, but it's been tough. We're in lockdown. We're in day late 70, and I was like, oh, this is. And speaking of existential crises, the last book was an existential crisis, and this is so different. Like it's just.
Mm.
Yeah, it is that. So here's the big question, guys. There's a second book coming. Is she going to do what she did with the Long Way Small Light and Group Planet series, the Wayfarer series, where she did different characters, or are we going to follow these guys?
No, we're going to follow these guys because the series is called Monk and Robot.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, they're at the Hermitage. If she picks up where they left off, they have to come back.
Well, I think
they have at least
going to be
Tex would have to at least introduce Moscap to someone else at the very least. So, but
I think it's going to be about them take Moscap going and interacting with more people and
I'm very much
that
looking
was
forward to
that was Moscap's original mission, right? Like this is kind of a tangent from what Moscap planned to do. So
but I think Moscap's learned a lot, and
I think that pre-learning will serve Moscap too, because going straight into the humans might have been a bit much.
And actually that's what I wanted to speak to, but also I think going to what the Hermitage is basically a remnant, right? It's memory, it's the history. It's going to serve Moscap really well to see so much of it, because Moscap was so delighted, like, oh, I know these things, or where's that? And when they started to put things together, like it was really beautiful. But I remember this bit here where Dex says, the woodlands are lovely, they said at last, but tricky to navigate. The villages there are impossible to find your way through without a map. The riverlands are a little quirky, lots of artists. They can be a bit odd, but you'll like them. I can see Moscap liking a whole lot of artists. I generally, and this I thought was really interesting, I generally don't know what they'll make of you in the coastlands. They're largely cosmites there, and they're weird about technology. They won't chase you out or anything, but I don't know. Might be a tough nut to crack. And then they started going on, and I love that, because I was like, it feels like they're off to see the what are they called? The people in Dutch. The people have the beards with the no moustaches, and they do butter and
the
Amish.
Amish.
Like, in Dutch, which ones are those? Yeah, the Amish. Yeah, I was like, so it just made me kind of, and I think that's going to be interesting, is what are the different parts of Panga like? Like there's things that have been alluded to. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, she's given us an interesting world to go and explore. And she's given us a taster of it, but not so much that we feel like we know it really well too, I think.
Yeah. I think I kept thinking about where, like, not that I'm ever expecting her to kind of go into this, but I built up in my mind that possibly this was a moon off Jupiter that we had. But I don't think it is. I just, because she talked about the big planet, which had a different name, and bands of storms.
Yeah, I did imagine it as a gas giant. I didn't think it was Jupiter per se, but I definitely imagined a gas giant.
So I was sort of like, oh, that would be very cool.
That might be just because we've already established that
They're human.
that in our solar system there's been talk of, could we live on one of the moons around Jupiter and things like that. So it's sort of an established thing in our brains.
Yeah. I don't know if they'd be warm enough.
No, but like what I just mean that like lots of science fiction has sort of gone there with that kind of idea. So it's sort of in our brains because of what we read.
So anyway, I just I thought about that too, and I thought about how cool it would be that if you had both a sun star and you had a gas giant in your sky, that would be a cool thing to look at.
I imagine actually the sun would look pretty small from there, or at least from our gas giant.
Well, my gas giants, yes. I watched this hilarious light in real time video. It was fantastic. It was on Vimeo, and it showed it like light, like you were watching a beam of light and how starting. Did you see that one? The travel one? It's so good.
No, but I can visualize what it would be about. Yeah.
Start flying past things, and then there'd be nothing, and then it would get to Earth 8 minutes later, and then it would move on. It was Mars 11 minutes later. And then I think it got as far as one of them, and it said, next stop 4 hours, whatever planet it was, and that was where it ended. And I was like, oh, whatever it was, it was quite impressive. I'm like, yes, that's a long time to wait to see your first light.
Yeah, we forget sometimes that the solar system models that we look at are not to scale, not even close.
Yeah.
But what is interesting, sorry, boring science facts, because I only really learnt this a few years ago because I actually didn't know that the planets are all on a plane.
Yeah.
The eclipse.
That's why Pluto's not a planet anymore.
They swirled, and that's where they ended up. But I was always like, I know they did like this, but maybe they've got different, orbits at different areas. But no, we are all on a plane because that's how.
Yeah, Pluto goes on an angle like this, but that's one of the reasons why it was declassified as a planet. It wasn't the only reason, but it was one of the reasons. Because it's not on that same plane as the other planets.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's another Kuiper belt kind of.
Yeah. Well, there's other objects out there that are bigger than Pluto, and there's a few other reasons, I think, but.
I think it wasn't a simple classification to something else. I think they had to give it its own classification because they didn't really have an exact.
Well, it was kind of a matter of we either have to add like 20 more planets to our list of planets, or we need to admit that Pluto isn't one. Like,
exactly.
If you're going to keep Pluto, then you have to get all these other ones that are just as big and go, well, yeah, they count too.
So they came up with dwarf planets as they classified as a dwarf planet. All right, guys, if we're finished, I think we're good.
Yeah,
I think so.
All right. So for those people out there in internet lands, if you'd like to join us in 2 weeks' time, we'll be reading The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, which is Naomi's pick. He's been very silent today.
All right. I'm in a lot of pain today. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's all right. Bye, everybody.